Hello, everyone. It is such a pleasure to be live again. We're streaming this live to LinkedIn, to YouTube, and we will turn this into a podcast episode as well. Today's session is it's an HR focus. It's all about taking care of our people and the HR processes in a post-coronavirus world. And I guess what we've seen over the last few years is that there's been a big focus on transforming HR and the people management processes in our organizations. And what we've seen with COVID is that a lot of this has been accelerated. So today I will be joined by two very excellent people that know all about this. I'm joined by Daniele Sacco, who is the Chief HR Officer at the Mondadori Group, which is one of Italy's biggest publishing companies, and he has led the transformation of their HR processes there. And I'm also joined by Jaza Dalal, who is the head of CRM Cloud Strategy EMEA at Oracle. How are you? How are you both? How are you, Daniele, first? Yeah, I believe you're in Italy right now, huh? Which is nice. Just come back from the beach, you told me.
Exactly. I'm in Italy. I'm enjoying my second day of vacation after such a crazy time. Being locked in my home for 2.5 months. So it sounds a dream, to be outside and enjoying a bit, of the seaside.
Yeah, and I think the lockdown in Italy was a lot more stringent than in other countries. You know what? You weren't allowed to go out at all, right?
No, in fact, from the beginning of March, we stayed literally at home for 2.5 months, basically. Yeah.
Wow. And Jazad, how are you? Where are you now? You're in London?
I'm in northwest London, in beautiful sunny England.
Very good, which is very sunny today.
So far, so good.
Yeah. So how has the pandemic affected your life?
I mean, for me personally, I've got 2 young sons who are back here somewhere in the photo. And so for us, it was all about school in March and April and May and figuring out how to manage through all of that, like a lot of families. And now working through summer vacation and figuring out how to entertain them and keep all of us from going crazy as we've been locked up in the house for the past several months. But so far, so good. We're very lucky.
Yeah, no, same here. I feel very lucky that I can work from home, but I hear you. I've had to balance my 3 children at home with homeschooling and working from home as well. So, Daniela, maybe you can give us a little bit of your background and explain a little bit about what you do and who you work for.
Yeah, definitely. I'm an HR professional, and I've been an HR professional for all my life. It's 30 plus years of experience. 20 of them spent abroad out of my home country. I've been very blessed to work for great companies like HP, Kraft Foods, Ferrero, Rio Tinto, and now Mondadori. And the fact that, HR is such a portable, function, it helped me to go through 4 different industries, enjoying really, the difference between, the different industries. My last job is Mondadori. I joined the company about 4 years ago now, coming back from London to Milan, my hometown. Mondadori is a great company too. It's a leading company. It's the #1 publisher in Italy, and with a presence also in other countries like France, UK, China, US. It's a very old company because it was founded in 1907, so 113 years ago. It's a very complex one. It's about 1 billion, so not immense in terms of size, but it's very complex because it's not just books. It's books, magazines, digital. It's a digital editor, #1 digital editor. It works in schools and universities, as well as, I didn't know that, in museums, and produces exhibitions around the world. So it's a very diverse and #1 retailer as well. in terms of bookshops in Italy. Yeah.
Excellent, very good. And as we're talking about people management, how many employees?
It's about 3,000.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you. Jaza, do you want to do the same? Do you want to just give me a little overview of what you do for Oracle?
Sure. So at Oracle, we have a very significant business in developing and deploying cloud applications. And of course, one of those cloud applications is Oracle Cloud HCM, which is a full suite of HR software in the cloud. And it's used by some of the largest and best and most progressive companies in the world, including Mondadori. So we're very proud to have Daniele and his organization as our customer. And here in the region, Europe, Middle East, and Africa, my job at Oracle is to look after our go-to-market strategy for this part of the world. In essence, telling our story and working with our customers to understand what they need so that we can give them the best services possible. So that's my role here, and similar to Daniele, but on the other side of the desk, I've been in HR services for over almost 25 years, and started my career at an internet company called Monster.com, which, if some of us remember, was so famous a long time ago, and it's still around, of course, and came up through Monster.com. And I've been at Oracle now for 5 years, the first 3 based in Singapore in Asia, and the last 2 years here in the UK.
Very good. This session is obviously for everyone listening. We're doing this for everyone, trying to share our knowledge, and we've got people saying hello from all over the world. So let me pull a few people in. We've got Sarah from Dubai, we've got Gina from Tampa, someone from Algeria, we've got Eva from Norway. We've got Helena from South Australia, which is great to see. We've got Ross from Reading in North London. We've got Carla from Mexico. Who else have we got? We've got someone from Poland. I'm not even attempting to pronounce the name. Juliana from Brazil, from Morocco, from the US, from Zambia. So it's always amazing to see that we have a really global audience. And please, this session is for you, everyone. So let us know if you're enjoying this, if you have any specific questions we can answer, and if you have any feedback or comments, or just let us know where you're from and what you're doing. That makes it a lot more engaging. Okay, Daniele, obviously, looking back, even before the pandemic, we've seen that there was a big need to transform the HR processes in organizations. What do you see as the priorities now? Because the world has obviously shifted with the pandemic. What do you see as some of the biggest transformation needs? What do you see as the biggest HR challenges that have started even before the pandemic, but that have been maybe accelerated and amplified during the pandemic?
Yeah, I think, Bernard, that the challenges that we had before the pandemic has been just magnified and accelerated. The number one that I had before the pandemic is the challenge of having, for the first time in history, I guess, 3 generations of people working together, right? So, and then you have to cope with this situation, and having processes streamlined and very simple to allow people to work together, despite their ages are so far away sometimes. So the challenge of technology in helping the organization to work effectively, I think, is still there. And this has been really magnified by the COVID, because suddenly everyone had to work together, but not physically, right? And this makes the things, from one hand, more complicated. For the other hand, we also found more simple. We never been punctual as we were during the pandemic, using Zoom technology or all the other stuff that we have done, for instance. So it's crazy, but that's the way it is. And the other thing that I can note is that people were very happy and with no difference of age or whatever, to take more responsibility on their shoulders as well. So all the cumbersome hierarchies, processes, bureaucracy has been wiped out by the COVID to a certain extent. So
Absolutely.
the COVID unleashed some positive energy as well.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. Shahzad, you obviously work with lots of clients across Europe. What do you see as some of the challenges that they talk to you about, that they want to solve?
I think it's changing as we progress through the pandemic. I think the most common refrain we heard from our customers at the beginning, let's say March and April, was, how do I take care of my people? And I think that's an interesting question because, we're a technology company, and at heart, we're providing a platform. We have customers like Daniele, who, if they are going to be very progressive as they are at Mondadori, they're going to really leverage the platform we're providing. But it is really what you make of it. And so to answer that question, I can tell you what we did here at Oracle. We're using our own platform. Our first action from our CEO, which may not sound that critical, was very important. There was a mass communication globally to our 200 countries. Make sure your mobile phone is updated in the HR system immediately. So from a contingency perspective, we knew that people were going to be working remote, effective immediately. We knew that the number one best way to access any human on earth today is through their phone. And so to make sure that people who were historically desk employees, we may or may not have their mobile phone, we needed that now for sure. How do I take care of my people? And I think that was the most common question we heard at the beginning. What we're hearing now is, how do I prepare for what's next? Especially since we don't know what will happen next. Will there be a new wave, a second wave, a third wave? And how do I start modeling different scenarios for the future so that I can prepare for different circumstances? Some of the questions that we're hearing, and we spend a lot of time making sure that our customers know how to leverage the platform that they have, so that they can do, whether it's scenario modeling for the future based on headcount requirements, based on illness, based on impact of COVID on different geographies that they might be present in, so that they can be as well prepared as they can.
Very good. Okay, so let's try to make this a bit more real for people. Maybe Daniele, you can, if you can share your HR transformation journey that you've taken on so far, and maybe give some practical examples of some of the things you've done and the impact they've had on the business and the people.
Yeah, definitely. I can do that, Bernard. When I joined the company about 3.5 years ago, what I found was in terms of technology, HRIS, what I found was a sort of quote unquote jungle of different systems, Excel spreadsheets, and a lot of stuff that has been developed internally as well. So, and this was not tenable, quite frankly, because it was not state of the art. Luckily, we took the decision a year before the pandemic to switch to a more let's say monolithic kind of an approach. And in fact, we chose a system suite-based, basically. Instead of choosing the best of breed approach, we choose a system robust enough to help us, and then building from there. That's something that would have been portable as well, and developing also based on our experience. And this platform helped immensely during the pandemic, and is going to help us also in the future. A few examples. When we put everybody at home working from home, we had a platform to provide immediately e-learning, specifically to help people to work from home, right? Because if priority number one for us was the safety of our people, the health of our people, the priority number 2 was putting them in the condition to work from home, right? So this second stuff, e-learning has been done, in 1 week, basically, helping them in working, from home. This wouldn't be possible before, I have to say. Another thing is information about COVID, for instance. We flooded people with information, and at a certain point in time, we couldn't, understand, how to help them. So we started with the chatbot that we called, the Mondadori digital assistant, to answer to all the questions about COVID and to locate all the documents that we produce and we put in different places in the platform. Again, this has been done quickly. In 2 weeks, we implemented that and off we go. It's learning by doing, so it's something that we need to continue to improve. But again, technology helped in this way. And this is also part of the platform that we implemented, Those are a couple of examples, but I can carry on, with others. For instance, during the pandemic, to hire somebody before, we had to go through a very cumbersome process, paper-based, with many signatures and a very slow, process. After that, now I can approve a hiring from my iPhone. It's a workflow, very easy to use. I can get all the information that I want, and I can, approve a hiring in New York straight from my iPhone. So again, this saved so much time, allowing people to think to more value-added things, basically, instead of, running around and finding the modules, etc., etc. So those are, 3 examples, I think, quite interesting in the way we applied, technology.
Yeah, absolutely. So the pandemic actually has fast-tracked some of the digital transformation that then had real business benefits. In terms of benefits, what would you say were the major benefits of the transformation steps that you've taken so far in terms of taking care of people, engaging employees, in terms of saving money, whatever those might be?
Well, it's a bit of, a few things, because I think, the most important benefit is a sort of, democratic and ubiquitous approach to the data, right? Before that, who got the data got the power, right? Now the data is there and is available to everyone. And because we do believe that, people has to take in their hands the responsibility, for instance, for their own development, they have all the data available there about, their own assessment, about, the self-assessment of their experience and skills, open to everyone, about training and development opportunities as well, about new hiring, and so new position, job posting, everything is there. So this, I think, is the most important thing, if you wish. I can also carry on and say that we save a lot of time, as I said, streamlining the processes. We can then use this time to give more value, to the decision makers. But I think, the most important thing is let's say, ubiquitous approach and the availability of data for everyone.
Very good. So you've obviously taken a very established traditional organization through this HR transformation. What would you say are some of the critical success factors? What have been some of the biggest barriers that you needed to overcome? And have you got any top tips, or any other HR leaders listening to this, watching this? What would you share with them?
Listen, I can share 2 things. The first is, when you choose the technology, you have to have in mind that it has to be robust, it has to be reliable. As I said before, we need to have 3 generations of people using these tools. So they need to be very, very user friendly. The second tip I can say, and that's the reason why, by the way, as I said before, we chose a suite approach versus best of breed, because best of breed you can get the best you have on the market for a single process, but then pooling things together can be very complicated, right? And also the approach of management and employee self-service, to me it's another key, because it involves immediately people on things they are interested in, instead of having somebody else sending them data or sending them information. They are the actors of what's in the system. And again, this is not a secondary effect in my view. What we learned also with COVID is that people are much more flexible, and as long as the object that you propose to them is interesting for themselves, so motivation, they are much more flexible. They are much more quick in grabbing new technology than we thought before. Sometimes we self limit ourselves in these changes.
So Shahzad, you obviously work with lots of customers. You see lots of them attempting and successfully delivering HR transformation. What do you see as some of the key enablers? What makes a successful transformation journey and creating an HR environment that is ready for this post-coronavirus world?
I think, as Daniele was alluding to, it's about speed. A lot of it has to do with speed and the realization that all the things you thought that were nice to have one day is now. Suddenly it is now. And we are seeing change that used to take years is now taking place in weeks, not years. We have a great example also in Italy, Poste Italiane, which is the National Postal Service, had committed to modernization, was working with us to deploy HR systems, learning systems, and doing it the normal way, taking time, a few months to deploy this, let's do a pilot, because that's okay. And then COVID hits. And suddenly this pilot that was meant to be, let's deploy our learning system to a few hundred employees, they realized, no, we need to be able to bring everyone up to speed immediately. Let's deploy it to all 100,000 of our employees immediately. So what should have been a pilot for a month and then a deployment was a full deployment in just a couple of weeks. I use this as an example because, as Daniele said, what used to take a long time is now taking place in moments. And so I think speed is one of the key factors. The other piece is very similar to what Daniele was just saying. We have to trust our people and empower our people. Some of the CEOs that get talked about a lot these last few years as being different. If you think of some of these leaders who are very famous for leading with empathy. A lot of empathy has to do with empowerment. I can picture myself in your shoes. If I were you, I would want to have access to data to make decisions, to resources that help me move faster or help me do my job from home. So empathy also leads to empowerment. In the 80s, you had Jack Welch from GE, who used to say, I'm leading from my gut. And we used to say, trust your gut and lead with your mind. And I think today, it has to be trust the data and lead with your heart. And that's the balance then between we know that the data doesn't lie, and that allows us to invest more time leading empathetically. Let's empower our people with all the tools we would want to have if we were them. I think this, between speed and this empathetic, empowerment-based approach, hopefully technology sits at the center of that so that we can move faster and trust our people. I'll give you another quick example. Is a lovely story that we heard from some of our customers in North America that has to do with trust and data. You had, especially at the beginning of the crisis, massive furloughs in certain industries, especially tourism-based. We're not traveling anymore. Large hotel companies, large global hotel chains whom we work with, who needed to furlough their employees. And at the same time, essential workers who never realized how essential they were, working in the back room of the grocery store, suddenly we needed tens of thousands more for our grocery customers. We weren't even personally involved because these customers of ours are all using the same system. We had major hotel chains say to major grocers, I'll give you a list of everyone I've just furloughed. And the grocer saying, that's wonderful. And by the way, if we are going to interview one of the people who is coming from this hotel company, we can skip certain steps because we trust that company. Maybe we can skip background checks for the 5,000 employees we'll pick up from that hotel company, or we even skip the interview. If you're good enough for a 5-star hotel, you're good enough to work in our grocery store. So again, trusting the data and then leading with the heart, which I think is something we're seeing more and more.
Very good. So what I'm seeing as well is that there's definitely a cultural element in any of this, in any transformation journey around HR, where you actually need to make sure the leaders are engaged in this. There is proper leadership from the front, that you take this forward. I guess this is your role in all of this, Danielle, that you've taken this on. I guess then there's a skill element as well. You need to make sure that you have the right skills in the organization. And when I work with lots of HR teams around the world, and when it comes to skills around technology and data, some are enthusiastic about this, but lots of them are not. How did you tackle this in Mondadori, for example? Was this led by IT? Was this led by HR? Did you create joint teams? This is, I think, a challenge that lots of organizations are facing.
Yeah, we definitely created a joint team because we understand that we do not have all the information and all the knowledge, to make a informed choice. So we definitely created a joint team to carry on with that. And again, but it's so important then to have in mind which kind of philosophy you want to propose to your organization, because you can use technology in very different ways. What we had quite clear in mind from the beginning is that we wanted to have people at the heart of the system that we wanted to implement. So it was done for them, if you wish, even before done for the top leaders of the organization. And this was leading us, because again, if you have this in mind, then simplicity, it's the number one thing that you have to look for. When I was working with HP, for instance, and I was working with the R&D of HP, they always had in mind the photocopier, right? Why you say photocopier? Because you have just one big green button to push to get an output, and all the complexity is inside the machine. So in your interface, you don't see the complexity. You push the green button and then you get an output. But if you open the photocopier, then you see a very big complexity inside. So this is the same concept, So the user interface should be as simple as the green button of the photocopier to be used by everyone at the end of the day. So this is, basically the philosophy that led us, to the choices that we made, that we are making, and these are paying off because, as I said before, it's so easy now to use, technology via mobile, for instance. You can use technology from everywhere, basically. Software as a service, again, is bringing technology out of your company to somebody that are able to do it. Cloud is another example. Bringing the risk, outside of your company and giving it to somebody that is much better than you in managing hackers, for instance. Again, but again, as Yazad said, trust is a key word here. And this is what has been magnified also by COVID. The trust is an element of speed. Of course, Covey wrote a book on this, but I do believe that there is an element linking trust and speed.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. For me, trust comes in at so many different levels when you talk about any digital transformation, and in particular in HR, where actually what you want to do is you need the trust of the people to take them with you on this transformation journey. Then you need to allow the system, and so you need to trust them so they can then use the systems by themselves to self-service, to do a good job. And I guess we need trust when it comes to data as well. This is another area. We need data to inform all of these systems. Without the good data, we can't really do this very well. No IT systems will work. So what we need to make sure is we have the right data. We can only have the right data if the people trust us and share the data with you. Do you agree?
I definitely agree with that, 100%. And of course, technology is evolving. Blockchain, for instance, is going in this direction. The blockchain technology is also giving some certainty about the quality of data that we didn't have in the past, and it will continue to evolve. But definitely, I agree with you. And another trust element that I would like to underline is when you choose a technology, you also choose partners. So, and again, because technology per se, it's a piece of software, but then you have to be sure that you have the right partner and the right system integrator helping you with the right attitude, right? We've been working with Accenture and Oracle in this period during the pandemic, and I have to say, they responded perfectly to me. So in terms of really partnership, taking care of our problems.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So what's next on your HR transformation journey? What is on your wish list? Where, if you look ahead 5 years within Mondadori, where do you think you will be? What other things will you want to have implemented?
Yeah, if I look, 5 years down the road, I don't know, because, quite frankly, what happened in the last 3 months, I thought it would have happened in 3 or 4 years, quite frankly. So talking about 5 years at the same speed is quite scaring. So I'm not sure what is going to happen in 5 years if we continue with the same pace of the lockdown. So I don't know. But, joking apart, my dream is that, this culture of having people responsible for their own development is well established. And in terms of systems, the what we call the brick and mortar, stuff, the basic stuff, again, well established, and then carry on and using, then the data properly. So I'm dreaming to have time in the next, 3 or 4 years to deal with, analytics, to deal with, AI. And again, we started, with this digital assistance, a bit of, nuance, if you wish, of AI. But, I want to see more, about that, definitely. And again, free the people time to allow them to add more value to the business. So that's my dream. So instead of, carry on and looking at, the data and understanding if the data is available, is the data is reliable, all that gone, and allowing them to use their time more productively to add value to the business.
Very good. I guess having a partner like Oracle on board that make sure that those cloud-based solutions evolve, that they're thinking about bringing in artificial intelligence and blockchain technology and autonomous systems. So, Jaza, what are some of the things that excite you in terms of what you see in the pipeline and what you want your customers to know about?
Well, I think there's two inspirations that we have, and I'm a big believer in Daniele's dream, by the way. And he mentioned earlier, whoever has the data has the power, and that we should be able to put that power in the hands of our people, but put it in their hands in a way that allows them to get to the work that matters. And one of the things that Steve Miranda, who's our global head of development, likes to say is the future of a user interface should be that there is no user interface. That an HR system or any system that we use as employees should not have a screen, should have no keyboard. And when we think of inspiration, I always think of my sister, who never used a computer in her life. Her first computer was really her iPhone several years ago. And her expectation of technology has accelerated so rapidly that whatever she thinks her phone should be able to do, it should do. And when it doesn't, that's when she gets frustrated. That's when she reaches an obstacle. And I think the same is true for all of us as humans, and for the human experience, whether it's in the workplace or at home, that we should be able to tick all the boxes of what we require from our technology without having to think of it, right? That it should just feel like magic, like Arthur C. Clarke likes to say. If it's sufficiently advanced technology, it should not be distinguishable from magic. And those are some of the key things that even 40 years ago, when large organizations started using technology to manage their people. And I am not suggesting, Daniele, that you were working in HR 40 years ago, but...
No, about 35, yes.
But if we think back to decades ago, what were our core requirements as HR leaders? We just needed to know two things. How many people do I have? And what am I paying them this cycle? That's it. And that continues to be the core requirement, except that today, we now also need to know, and especially right now, how am I tracking and paying my workers who are on furlough versus still permanent? Who's on leave? Who's on leave because of illness? Which of those illnesses is COVID related? Who's on maternity leave that we now need to extend? What are all the emergency contacts, which was the first move that we made at Oracle? How many of my employees are above a certain age? Because now I need to also track risk to COVID. If I'm a large, globally dispersed organization, what are the passport expirations for all of my globally dispersed assignment employees? Their visas expire. How do I manage that if they're in quarantine? And how do we give access to that data to the people who need it in the moment that they need it like this? I think these become the new imperatives. And so the other piece that I wanted to mention to you that makes me feel good about what we're doing and how we're doing it is I'd never worked at a large company in my life. When I came to Oracle, it was more of an experiment for myself. It's large, it's got 100 different businesses, and am I going to get lost and become anonymous in this company? It's been really exciting to be in an organization that's able to help on so many different parallels. My son was born, I'm from New York. My son was born in Mount Sinai Hospital. It's a very famous hospital on Fifth Avenue on Central Park in New York. That's the epicenter in New York for COVID as well. And we're supporting doctors and nurses at Mount Sinai, not just from an HR perspective, but across so many of their processes. We're helping the UK government keep an inventory of their testing kits for the NHS. But we're also helping Mondelez, the global food product company, make enough Oreo cookies so that we can stress eat. So the ability to support and help companies on multiple levels, I think, is something we're very proud of and excited by.
Very good. I'm just looking through the stream here. I'm just saying hello to a few more people. We've got Masha from Iran. We've got someone from Oman. We've got Tanzania and Turkey and the Philippines and from Ghana. So it's really nice to see from Brazil and from South Africa. We've got Lynn from Chicago. Hi, Lynn. Hope you enjoy today's session. from the Philippines again. So this is great to see. If anyone has any specific questions, because we have had so many questions, I couldn't quite keep track of all of them. If you just put them into the comment function now, also let us know what you think about the session and any feedback. That would be great. If there are any areas that you want us to dive into. There was one question earlier saying, Daniela, you talked about switching to home working, and this was obviously a big challenge. How do you see this continuing after COVID? I think this is a question that lots of people have. Lots of HR departments are struggling with. Lots of employees think actually there's definitely some benefits of home working. There are also some disadvantages. How do you see this working in your own organization?
Yeah, this is, Bernard, this is exactly what everyone is thinking today, everyone is working on today. Because the paradox is, when you work all in presence, you are quite efficient. When you work all at home, you are even more efficient. But when it comes, to work partly at home and partly, in presence at the office, this is where the challenge comes, because we need to find a way to allow people to work from their homes, but at the same time, to have moments where we're gonna be working together in presence. This is exactly where we are working on. Even if the first preoccupation was, as I said before, the health and safety of our people, the second was, as I said before, to allow them to work from home. The third preoccupation was to maintain a certain sense of community and identity. Because, if you are at home, 7 days a week, you can easily lose, this sense of community. So finding a mixed model, as we say, to allow people to work from home, but at the same time, for a portion of their times, to work more effectively together. This is, where we are working on, where we are applying our energy and our thoughts. We are not there yet, quite frankly. There are a number of different, let's say, proposals. And again, technology is gonna play a very important role here as well.
Very good. I just pulled in another question from Nala Kumar here, who asked, with so many of us working from home now, will you do employee onboarding remotely as well? And I think this then goes on saying, what are the tips for retaining the culture of your organization? And I think this is a question that I've again heard many times over the recent months, saying, okay, if we get everyone working from home, how do we actually create this sense of community, and how do we create the organizational culture? Any tips there?
Bernard, I love this question because I love that it includes this question about onboarding. In this crisis, everyone has assumed that all companies are shedding jobs, and it's not true. The world keeps turning. We continue to do business. Companies continue to grow in many cases, and even companies that have had to furlough have had to hire new folks to do jobs that maybe didn't exist before. It's one of the reasons why at the start of the pandemic, we created something called an employee care package for our existing customers. We said there are certain modules we offer that we're going to give you for free right now. Mm. One is called Employee Health and Safety, which does all the tracking I talked about before. But the other was onboarding. Mm. A lot of people said, "Well, that's a weird one to offer. Why are you doing that?" Because the world continues to turn. It's summertime. Lots of companies, including Oracle, have classes of summer interns joining. Mm. Their first impression of the working world. It's their first impression of us as an employer. We want to give them the best experience that we can. They're also the youngest generation, so we want to impress them with our tech savvy and show them that we are agile, that we can adapt. Mm. I think onboarding remotely, it's the first impression of a company's culture. So I think it's critical to maintain that and invest in that. Mm. The other thing that we've leveraged significantly, and I cannot overstate, is what we're doing right now, video communications. Mm. Oracle is a huge user of Zoom from the past 2 years, actually. So we're lucky, we were used to it. We're also very proud of the fact that Zoom runs on Oracle servers, so we are participating in their success as well. But leveraging it for non-work activities has been really important to building our culture. I've had numerous drinks sessions over Zoom and picnics, and we've done dancing and exercise. And if your Wi-Fi works in the garden, if you have a terrace or a balcony, we've taken it outside. And in fact, even in the little team in which I work, my manager, who's based in Paris, and of course, la cuisine is so important if you're French. She had a very fancy chef do a whole cooking lesson for us over Zoom. So I think there's a number of ways you can create an intimate atmosphere, leveraging video. Even the proximity to the camera can have an impact on how you engage with your employees. So I think that's been really important for us.
100%. Yeah, and I've seen this, that organizations have actually become more creative about the way they do engage with their employees and how they're creating teams and cultures. And all the examples you've given are examples I've seen really successfully done. Daniele, anything to add?
Well, if you want to use an example on it, where a culture of the company normally is able, to move from one person to another is at least in Italy at the coffee machine, right? So you stay at the coffee machine, you drink a coffee, and then you have a chat, and then this is where the culture really, create itself. Okay, so we had to create virtual coffee machines. Virtual coffee machines where people could go and have a chat together around a certain topic, or even with no topic at all, but simply, looking at each other and having, 5-10 minutes of a chat. So again, if you cannot do things physically, you have to find ways to do similar things virtually. That's the way it is, in my view.
Very good. Candice is asking that the new normal, such as working from home, hasn't things like employee visas, insurance, engagements. They're all big challenges. One of the articles I've recently written is that it could potentially also globalize the workforce much more, because in the past, organizations were based in certain areas, like Mondadori based in Italy. You would then recruit Italians into certain job positions. Suddenly, they are working from home successfully. This also means that someone from Brazil or someone from anywhere in the world can do the job equally well. Do you see this happening?
If it's for me, the question, yeah, I see that happening, definitely. People can really work from anywhere, from any location. And this is going to also, change, again, the way people will interact. But again, if we are able to create the right conditions for them, and this is a mantra for me, so the HR needs to create the right condition for people to flourish, then this is going to happen. And this is going to be a great benefit for everyone in terms of, inclusion, diversity, and everything, especially for a company like us that is based on creating culture, right? Because we create and sell culture at the end of the day. So having diversity coming into our houses, it's perfect. New ideas, different point of views. So this is going to create a lot for us.
Very good. Let's take one final question here. I've got someone saying, I'm doing a master's dissertation on predictive analytics for employee attrition, and how useful do you see predictive analytics in your organization?
I can start to answer on this, because two thoughts I'll share on this question. And for me personally, this is something that I think can be a very exciting area. Traditionally, we think of predictive analytics as the world of actuaries, people in the insurance industry saying, if you're a smoker and you're over 50, you're going to die within this year and that year, which is pretty scary. And the reality is, again, going back to Daniele's point, we can put the data in the hands of the average person and allow them to have realizations that allow them to take smart actions, which could be saving an employee, or even before the employee needs to be saved. One good example that we see a lot of our customers using on our tool is the ability to look backwards in time to say, when people have left, what was the average commute time they had based on their postal code? What was the average amount of time since their last promotion or pay rise? Or which groups were they working in, or even which managers that could indicate that they're most likely to attrit because maybe that group or manager has a poor history of retention. Maybe we recognize that the data shows anyone who lives more than an hour away, has not had a pay rise in more than 2 years, or hasn't had a promotion in more than 3 years, is a 75% chance of leaving within X number of months. Whoa. Now we can set a trigger or an alarm that informs the manager or HR to take some preemptive action, which could be as simple as asking, how are you? So again, the data leading to empathy and empowering our people to leverage that. The other element of predictive analytics, which I think is really important right now for so many of our customers, is a little bit like video games, which is what-if modeling. And to make it, if I can use the word, almost fun, to say, what will happen if I reduce pay by X%? How many people will be likely to leave? What impact will that have on my revenue 6 months out? What will happen if I increase headcount in this group over the next 3 months, but with an average pay of X, but only in these 2 geographies? What impacts do we think this will have? What knock-on effects will that have? This kind of what-if modeling, and to do it rapidly so that you create an almost unlimited number of scenarios that you can then quickly visualize and share with the people who make the decisions. And when I say fun, because as humans, we love that eureka moment. And so seeking that out through doing, again, it's like a video game, seeking these different iterations until you find what you were looking for, that can be a really positive feeling for the person who discovered it.
Very good. Daniela, is predictive analytics on your radar, and how would you sell this and present this to stakeholders?
Well, it is definitely on my radar screen. It's not for tomorrow, maybe for the day after tomorrow, but it's definitely on my radar screen. Can you imagine the power of what just, as I said, apply to gender diversity and involuntary bias, for instance? Because data speaks by itself more than thousands words, right? And we definitely have, we as Western world for sure, a problem, still a big problem with gender diversity and involuntary bias, right? And if you apply all this, to an issue like that, it will help immensely to overcome skepticism, and is going to also point us in the right direction to take the right actions about it.
Very good. I feel that this is one of those sessions where we could just carry on just chatting, and it feels like the audience is really nicely engaged as well. So thank you everyone for sharing your ideas, sharing your questions.
Before you wrap up, I just thought of one other thing I wanted to mention to you, Daniele.
Okay.
You're talking about a very important, critical thing for your business, which was coffee. There is a very famous neighbor of yours also using Oracle Cloud HCM like you, which is Ili Cafe.
Yeah, definitely.
I want to put you in touch with Ili Cafe. Between the two of you, you need to figure out what is the golden path to virtual coffee for Italian coffee.
Yeah, I will do so, definitely.
Great.
More than welcome.
I had the pleasure to meet their CEO at Oracle Open World in London. So they have a great story to tell, and a lot of HR processes they've implemented very effectively there too. Absolutely. So as I said, thank you very much. Anyone who wants to re-listen to any part of this will be available on my YouTube channel, where you can also re-listen to all the previous LinkedIn lives and all the conversations I'm having with super exciting people and authors all across the world. So head there if you want to learn more. as always, let us know in the comments what you thought and any particular questions. Are you, Jazad and Daniela, are you happy to dive in over the next few days and have a look at some of the questions and trying to answer them too? Yeah?
More than welcome.
Perfect. So I will do the same. So feel free, if you have any more questions, just drop them into the comment function and we will try to answer them. Thank you very much. As always, stay safe and see you soon. Thank you, Daniela. Thank you, Jazad.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Bernard.